Alright, admittedly I've jumped on the runaway bandwagon that is Apex Legends. Considering I came to the game a week after its debut, I've already logged over 30 hours, but I can safely say I am thoroughly enjoying this game. The thing is, I've been questioning myself as to why, because I'm not a person that likes Battle Royale games, nor am I particularly good at them. So why am I losing myself to Apex Legends, yet another Battle Royale game in a tired and oversaturated genre? The two big names in the Battle Royale genre before Apex came and started taking the attention away were PUBG and Fortnite. Both of these games I've played relatively extensively with an embarrassingly large amount of time put into PUBG, a game I absolutely hate, and a fair amount of time put into Fortnite, though I'm one of two people who prefer Save the World over the Battle Royale mode, so I have much more time spent on that one. Despite the time that I've put into both of these games, I've never really fully enjoyed the BR experiences they individually presented. The presentation and gameplay choices each had their own problems, and featured two extremely different tones when compared to each other. However, after playing Apex Legends, I came to realize that it took aspects from each game and smashed them together to create a happy medium that succeeds in almost every aspect of its design. As a disclaimer, I'll only be talking about the actual game itself and the experience a player gets when hopping into a normal game. The microtransactions, connection with EA, and the platform it's hosted on will not be discussed. I will also be attempting to talk about PUBG and Fortnite in a subjective manner. Lastly, I recognize there are other BR game modes out there such as Call of Duty's and CSGO's, however I do not have any experience in either of those, so I will not be mentioning them. I am strictly here to compare the 3 games that I have played. However, feel free to make your own comparisons in the comment section. With that aside, let's start with the easiest to see visually, the art style. Now, Apex's art style is exactly the same as Titanfall since Apex takes place within the same universe and general time period. An important thing for me to note is that I've not played the Titanfall series yet, so I'm judging Apex strictly on what I see coming from the game, but I am well aware that many of the gameplay elements came from Titanfall. The art style of a game is incredibly important during development. The art style usually determines the tone the game will go for, and subsequently the type of gameplay and mechanics that will need to be implemented, which is something you'll come to see as we go through this video. The art style is the visual identity of the game, and an aspect that a lot of people will judge on a game even before experiencing the gameplay. PUBG and Fortnite take two completely different art styles that lead to separate problems. With PUBG, or as I like to call it, Unity Assets the game, you have an attempted gritty realistic art style. The devs decided on what I would describe as a very generic muted colors art style. Everything is run down and lacking color, kinda like the real world. This can present itself a problem when trying to spot other players, due to almost everything sporting washed out colors, bar some wackily bright cosmetics they've added to the game. This makes it so that players can very easily unintentionally blend in with the side of the hill or a tree in a forest. One of the reasons as to why this is the case, and in an argument towards PUBG, is that the art direction lends itself to a more stealthy sort of strategy. PUBG allows players to peek around corners, go prone, and even wear camouflage outfits. So, for the type of art style the developers chose, it does in fact lend itself to a more effective strategy, stealth. On the other side of the spectrum, we have the overly colorful, cartoony Fortnite. Due to its vibrant colors and wacky skins, Fortnite makes it incredibly easy to spot people due to massively contrasting colors. This, in and of itself, is basically the opposite problem that PUBG has. In PUBG, it can be way too hard to spot an enemy, often resulting in confusion and players camping in cheeky spots, whereas in Fortnite, makes it way too easy. Apex's art style is sort of in between realistic and unrealistic. Character designs and textures lean more towards the realistic side of things, but considering this universe takes place in a futuristic sci-fi setting, an air of fantasy and suspension of disbelief is required. This leads to the art direction that isn't dead set in realism, which allows for more colorful and varied settings and characters both in personality and design. In a realistic-styled game, you likely wouldn't have a large bipedal robot swinging around on grappling hooks into enemies with a shotgun at the ready. The colors used on the varied environments within the map pop just enough to where they aren't too bland, but they aren't too bright. This means it's still very much possible to spot other players while also making sure it isn't incredibly easy. Well, unless the player is intentionally wanting to be spotted by sporting some questionably bright skins. With both PUBG and Fortnite though, it can be argued that it covers their faults brought on by their respective art style with its added mechanics. In Fortnite, you have the option to build quick cover if you're immediately seen and place traps for anyone foolish enough to follow you into a building. The unique building mechanic allows players to rectify this problem while also adding a separate skill that gives the game an added layer of depth and learning. PUBG emphasizes stealth with its ghillie suit and many mechanics that synergize well with a sneaky beaky playstyle. Now, how does Apex fit into all of this? Well, Apex doesn't have building and it doesn't entirely rely on intense stealth tactics to be successful, but it incorporates aspects of each of these into its characters that allow you to better take on one or the other. BR games all have similar overarching strategies. You can decide to play passively and let other people fight it out before you join in, or you can go in guns a-blazing and announce your presence to everyone around you. Each legend in Apex allows players to more easily play certain tactics, strategies, and playstyles. Let's say you're feeling like taking it slow to the point where you end up camping. Gibraltar and Caustic would be fantastic choices due to their abilities of a large shield and poisonous traps respectively. They are meant for defensive tactics and excel at denying access to certain areas, specifically with Caustic's gas traps that allow him to make an entire building a death trap. If you want to be more aggressive, you have characters like Pathfinder, Bangalore, and Wraith. Pathfinder's beautiful grappling hook allows you to swing around quickly into or over the enemy in a quick engage and gives your team the ability to position anywhere the map allows them. Bangalore's passive works when she's actively being shot at, allowing her to receive buffs when she's in the middle of a firefight, and her smokes allow for both offensive pushes and defensive retreats. And Wraith is just basically good at everything, engaging, retreating, etc. Even though certain characters excel more at certain strategies doesn't mean that they aren't flexible and that they can't effectively be played in many different playstyles. For instance, Mirage can both be a coward and a braveheart with his holograms. Players can use them both as a way to try and get out of danger and a way to engage in a fight. Without going into excruciating detail, each character is a mixed bag of strategies with their abilities. Bloodhound is a great example of this. Their main abilities allow them to track players that were recently in the area as well as scan in a set radius for any players, which allows them to scope out people who might be camping or hiding. On the other hand, their ult allows them to get incredibly aggressive with buffs to their movement speed, fire rate, reload speed, but also gives them the opportunity to play more defensively with increased speed in item use and reviving. Now, in an FPS, the gunplay is a very important mechanic within the game since it's going to be your main source of dealing damage. In PUBG, the guns in terms of kickback and feel very solid. They feel like they have actual power behind them when you fire, like they're real guns, regardless of the game's server issues. A visual aspect of each gun's gunplay is something that seems unimportant, but is something that can really affect a person's experience. In PUBG, the bullets are almost downright invisible, probably due to a more realistic art style it develops. Because it's nigh impossible to see bullets, this means that not only can it be difficult to tell exactly where you're being shot from, but it can also be difficult to tell where you're shooting from. In my 100 hours of playing this game, I never learned how I was supposed to aim these weapons. Now, this is something that I am taking from my own experience. Personally, I learned first-person shooter games through hit-scan weapons in the vein of every gun in Team Fortress 2. In my time playing PUBG, I was almost never able to tell where my shots were landing, so I was never able to correct my aim and learn from my mistakes. The lack of bullet visuals on bullets considered projectiles is a problem to players who aren't used to that style of weapon and aiming. Combine that with the fact that PUBG didn't receive a training mode until almost a year after its official release, meant that up until then, the only form of practice you had was dropping into a game and hoping you got the gun you wanted to practice with. However, Fortnite decides to show bullets and traces for almost every single gun in this game, in addition to showing a visual flash upon impact on both players and terrain. This makes it very easy to tell where your bullets are coming from both yourself and your enemies, though maybe a little too easy. Because of this, it becomes much easier to correct your aim since you're able to visually see where your shots exactly land. Apex takes more of an approach to how Fortnite handles its gun visuals, but tones them down to the point where you're still very much able to see all bullets shot, but they don't have a large, flashy indicator such as what happens in Fortnite. The ability to at least somewhat see your shots in a projectile bullet game is very important addition in my opinion, because it allows new players to more easily learn how to use the game's weapons. With a hit-scan weapon game, a visual isn't necessary because of how hit-scan mechanics work, but when the game is filled with weapons that have varying velocities that require different aiming conventions, being able to at least barely see where you're shooting at is a very important added aspect. In addition to the guns, the movement system in a game is incredibly important too. PUBG once again takes a heavier, more stiff movement system for the sake of keeping with the realism motif. Fortnite is the complete opposite, however, and goes for a loose and floaty system that's in line with its unrealistic art style. Once again, both are on extreme ends of the spectrum, and once again, Apex is somewhere in between. The core movements, the ledge climbing, jumping, and sprinting that everyone can do all feel solid and more realistic, but considering the game takes place on an alien planet, the gravity seems just a tad lower than normal, meaning the jumping has a bit more float to it, and possibly is the reason why there is no fall damage in the game. Although that's more than likely just a design choice. But when talking about the movement system in Apex, forgetting to mention the slide would be a sin. The slide is something everyone can do that was taken from Titanfall, and it's one of the game's most defining traits. Fortnite has building, PUBG has the attempted realism, and Apex Legends has sliding. And I guess character abilities. But honestly, how can you look at those when you can slide down an entire hill in 5 seconds at a high speed? This slide alone makes Apex the current king in movement when it comes to Battle Royale games. It's smooth, it's useful in all situations, and most importantly, it is fun as hell to use. While Apex was in no way specifically built around Fortnite and PUBG, I feel as though it has many positive shared aspects from both and unintentionally combines them into a very enjoyable experience. Both Fortnite and PUBG have their pros and cons with their gameplay design, and it seems like Apex only took their pros and made it into something greater than the sum of its parts. Even with its faults, what Apex brings to this oversaturated scene, I believe will allow it to continue to stand out and be the pinnacle of design for Battle Royale games from here on out. As long as EA and shady microtransactions doesn't kill it.